Hey, okay, so I'm not there today, but you will be exploring the Ebola virus and the effects of the spread of disease on people. So, to start you off, I'm going to read you an excerpt theatrically from a book called The Hot Zone, which is written by Richard Preston. In the book, it's a true story of an Ebola outbreak that made its way from the jungles of Africa to a research lab in Washington, D.C. In the excerpt, the author describes the symptoms of the deadly virus as it appeared in one of its first known human victims. It is super gross. You're going to love it. Okay. Okay. The headache begins typically on the 7th day after exposure to the agent. On the 7th day after his New Year's visit to Kidham Cave, January 8th, 1980, Monet felt a throbbing pain behind his eyeballs. He decided to stay home from work and went to bed in his bungalow. The headache grew worse. His eyeballs ached, and then his temples began to ache, the pain seeming to circle around inside his head. It would not go away with aspirin. And then he got a severe backache. His housekeeper, Johnny, was still on his Christmas vacation and had recently hired a temporary housekeeper. She tried to take care of him, but she didn't know what to do. Then, on the 3rd day after his headache started, he became nauseated and spiked a fever. And began to vomit. His vomiting grew intense and turned into dry heaves. At the same time, he became strangely passive. His face lost all appearance of life and set itself into an expressionless mask, with the eyeballs fixed, paralytic, and staring. The eyeballs were slightly droopy, which gave him a peculiar appearance, as if his eyes were popping out of his head and out of their sockets and half closed at the same time. The eyeballs themselves seemed frozen in their sockets, and they turned bright red. The skin of his face turned yellowish, with brilliant star-like red speckles. He began to look like a zombie. His appearance frightened the temporary housekeeper. She didn't understand the transformation in this man. His personality changed. He became sullen, resentful, angry, and his memory seemed to be blown away. He was not delirious. He could answer questions, although he didn't seem to know exactly where he was. Thinking that he might have some kind of bacterial infection, they gave him injections of antibiotics, but the antibiotics had no effect on his illness. So the doctors thought he should go to the Nairobi Hospital, which is the best private hospital in East Africa. They put him in a taxi to the airport, and he boarded a flight to Kenya, boarded a Kenya Airways flight. A host virus, or hot virus, from the rainforest lives within a 24-hour plane flight from every city on Earth. All of the Earth's cities are connected by a web of airline routes. The web is a network. Once a virus hits the net, it can shoot anywhere in a day. Paris, Tokyo, Los Angeles, wherever planes fly. Clinton, Missouri. Charles Monet, the life form inside of him, had entered that web and entered that net. The commuter flights that drone across Africa are often jammed with people, and this flight was probably filled with people. The propellers moaned, and the Friendship passed through the cloud streets, lines of puffy rift clouds, and began to bounce and sway, so Monet became airsick. The seats are narrow and jammed together on these commuter airplanes, and you'll notice everything that is happening inside the cabin. The cabin is tightly closed, and the air recirculates. If there are any smells in the air, you perceive them. This would not have been able to ignore the man who is getting sick. He hunches over in his seat. There's something wrong with him, but you can't tell exactly what it is. He's holding an air sickness bag over his mouth. He coughs the deep cough and regurgitates something black into the bag. The bag swells up, and perhaps he glances around. Then you see that his lips are smeared with something coppery and red coming out of his mouth, mixed with black specks as if he's been chewing coffee grounds. The His eyes are the color of red rubies, and his face is an expressionless mass of bruises. The red spots, which have days before had started out as starlight speckles, have expanded and merged into huge, spontaneous purple shadows. His whole head is turning black and blue. The muscles of his face droop. The connective tissue in his face is dissolving, and his face appears to hang from one underlying bone as if his face is detaching from his skull. He opens his mouth and gasps into the bag, and the vomiting goes on endlessly. It will not stop, and he keeps bringing up liquid. Long after his stomach should have been empty, the air sickness bag fills up to the brim with a substance known as the black vomit. The black vomit's not really black. It's speckled with two colors, black and red, a stew of tarry specks mixed with fresh red arterial blood. It is a hemorrhage, and it smells like a slaughterhouse. The black vomit is loaded with a virus. It's highly infective, lethally hot, a liquid that would scare the daylights out of a military biohazard specialist. The smell of the vomit negro, or the black vomit, fills the passenger cabin. The air sickness bag is brimming with black vomit, so Monet closes the bag and rolls up to the top. The bag is bulging and softening and threatening to leak all over you, and so he hands it to a flight